The following program is a production of Naleo TV.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Chris, and welcome to our Techsum podcast. If you haven't tuned in the past, Techsum is all around technology, STEM-related things that we talk about, things happening on our island. And today we have the Honorable Art Kimura. If you guys don't know who he is, I call him the godfather of robotics, I guess you could say. But he's more than that. He's one of the first people I met when moving back. And welcome, Art.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
We'll just go into like a little bit of why I look up to Art so much, just because he grew up in Hilo, went through the military, and eventually became a biology teacher. And through his journey, I'm just going to list off some of his accolades, which are like Outstanding Biology Teacher of the Year in 1978, White House, Recipient Representative National Nominee, NASA Teacher in Space, First Teacher Representative from U.S., First International Space Camp, Brewer National Educator Award, Lehua no Ka'ala, Outstanding Career Science Educator, and just to name a few, and one of the one that stood out to me the most is Living Treasures Award back in 2014. So that's just some of his accolades, and he's so humble. And again, I cannot help but say thank you for being on our podcast today, Art.
Privilege for me.
First and foremost, I want to kind of fill some gaps. So you became a biology teacher. What is the correlation with biology, and how did that morph into working with NASA and robotics?
So I started teaching biology at McKinley High School. I was there for 12 years. During my third year there, I started a program, off-campus program, because I wanted kids to have a real experience in science. So we had the students reporting to the Honolulu Zoo, the Humane Society, Waikiki Aquarium, and Straub Hospital, and they would get 2 credits. They would report there twice a week. Now, as a result of that, I believe I was nominated for a presidential award, and from that, it led to the Teacher in Space designation in 1985. And I can say that, as part of the mission basically was to fly on the Space Shuttle Challenger with Hawaii's own Ellison Onizuka on board. And we all know of the tragic consequence that occurred in 1986. And so I can say clearly that if Challenger had flown successfully that day, I would not be sitting here with you right now. The tragedy changed the direction because the state asked me to go around the schools and kind of give students hope that the tragedy occurred, but there is hope for the future. So I spent a year touring schools, and then following that, I was loaned to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism for 7 years in their Office of Space Industry. And during that time, we started our own version of a space camp called Future Flight Hawaii, which we ran for 25 years. And eventually, when that office closed, our program was transferred to the University of Hawaii. When the current IMI law is being envisioned here in Hawaii, Senator Inouye at the time had gotten $28 million in funding to start the IMI law program, passed through NASA. So here in Hilo was the opening meeting, which I attended. And just by chance, I got to sit with a NASA engineer who had come representing NASA. He was sitting by himself at dinner. And so I just walked over, introduced myself, sat down with him. It totally changed my life because within minutes, he had me chicken skin about how he was able to take students off the street of San Francisco, gang kids, and turn them into students going to UC Berkeley. So at the time, we did not have a scholastic robotics program in Hawaii. So I asked him, how can we get started? And he said, I came with a scholarship for one school. I kind of begged him that I wanted that scholarship to designate, but he said, no, the Department of Education will designate that school. And that eventually went to Wailoa High School, one of the most acclaimed programs in the world today.
Yeah.
Anyway, during that dinner, I begged him for a second scholarship. And he said, well, I really don't have it. I guess I badgered him so much. Toward the end of dinner, he said, I'll offer you half. And 2 days later, he called me and said, I'll give you a full one. That eventually went to the school I wanted to start with, was McKinley, which is the school I was teaching at. Interestingly, when I called the teacher saying I had this grant scholarship to start a robotics program, he turned me down. He said he had lost all his good students. He called them the Michael Jordans, and he did not want to come in last in something he had no knowledge of. And so I begged him 3 times. I called him, and finally he said, okay. And that first year, Wailu and McKinley went to an event, the tournament in San Jose, and they came in second. And that, both programs are still top of the world in terms of what they've been doing.
And this is first
robotics, right? And that, it's a challenging program. It costs, at the time, was $4,000 per team. You could add parts, so it costs you maybe $10,000 right off the bat. Today, I think the registration is now $6,000,
wow.
So it's a little more. But again, you can add more things. So you're talking a starting cost of $10,000, $15,000. So a costly program. We were stuck at 2 teams, then eventually grew to 7 teams because of the costs involved, and all the tournaments are on the mainland. So obviously high schools would not commit to something where they have to pay $20,000 to travel and so forth. But by chance, we were offered by NASA a $1 million grant over 4 years in order for us to have our own tournament, because it's costly to have a tournament here. It costs about $300,000 to run a tournament.
Wow.
And so the production cost is really high. At the time, we only had 7 high schools. So basically FIRST said, no, you cannot have a tournament with only 7 local teams. So the state sent me around. I visited nearly every public and private schools throughout the state. And in that 1 year, we increased it from 7 to 27 teams. And so we were able to have a tournament. And we've had a tournament every year at the Stan Sheriff Center during normally about the springtime.
Yeah.
So our team still travel to the mainland, and we have had noteworthy success, I think, among many teams. So, yeah. And from FIRST, while we were doing the FIRST program, they had a junior program called VEX. It was part of FIRST when we started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were partners. So we brought in VEX and introduced it as a fall program to prepare the students for FIRST. That's basically the idea. And then eventually they had a corporate dissolution. They divorced. And so FIRST had its own brand, and then VEX had its own branding. And then FIRST started another program called Tech Challenge, which was similar to VEX. And then, of course, they have the real popular FIRST Lego League. That's very popular. At the time, it was probably the most popular program in Hawaii. Then VEX grew their own elementary program called VEX IQ, and now they've gone down to lower grades with new programs, VEX Go, VEX 1, 2, 3. So they're competitive branding programs. And I'm grateful the fact that our schools have a choice. They can decide which program fits their needs and their budget and so forth. So at one time, we had 9 different robotics programs in Hawaii. The first one I brought in actually was called BotBall, which still is my favorite program. And we grew it in Hawaii to 40 teams. We were the biggest in the world at one time. No other country had as many teams as our state did. And we hosted 2 world championships in Hawaii. Unfortunately, that program was very expensive. The owners wanted us to buy new kits every year, so it became kind of unaffordable. And eventually, it diminished down to 10 teams, and then now I think maybe only a couple schools do that program. But it's still, to me, my favorite program because all autonomous, the kids had to really know coding, and it was a really good program.
Folks who don't know, there's a big difference between the VEX IQ. Well, it's 2 parts, right? So if you can kind of go into that, FIRST Lego or Lego in general, or FIRST is mostly all autonomous, right? And VEX is slightly different in that case.
Yes. Well, the mother program FIRST, FIRST, is for high school kids, and basically they build a 120-pound robot from scratch. There's really not a prescribed kit. They get a basic kit, but you can add things to it. And they run a competition 3 against 3 on a big field in usually a sports-like arena. Then their junior program is First Tech Challenge, which uses a metal kit, and they run 2 against 2 normally, and then they have autonomous. And then you have the elementary program and the junior First Lego League and First Lego League that uses Lego parts. And so that one is all autonomous. Kids have to code. I like the program because they have to do a research project, which is not found in most programs. So that's a good part of it. The reason I got pulled to VEX was the fact that you can drive the VEX robots as well as program it. And VEX has 2 types of competition right now. They have VEX VRC, which is for middle and high schools. They use all metal parts, and they play a game on a field, a 12-by-12 field, 2 against 2, and they have a championship. And we just had our championship last month here in Hawaii. So 7 of our teams are going to the World Championship in Dallas. Then the elementary and middle school overlaps to middle is called VEX IQ. All plastic parts snapped together, very easy to do. I like it because I think one reason I like VEX is because you can play more than one time. Because to me, part of the student experience has to be to redesign and reprogram your robot. And if it's only one time you play, you don't have an opportunity to improve or to change what your robot is. And the fact that if you can play multiple times, you'll meet teams, make friends with them, and collaborate. And so I think that's a good part of it.
It's pretty awesome to see how no-name team, like garage band team, just evolves into like world-class winners.
In pre-COVID, Big Island actually, in a sense, compared to the rest of the state, had the largest representation, if you think about population size. So Big Island has done well. Now, unfortunately, during COVID, we lost some schools because, the program got shut down and they never restarted. So, again, there's an effort to try and help restart the programs. I mean, all robotics programs heavily dependent on teachers who are willing to give up a lot of time. I mean, a lot of unpaid time.
Yes.
And so that is I think, the barrier we have, that to find that special golden teacher at a school that's willing to do that is really special.
You brought something up last time we talked about how do we mitigate that from the teachers being burnt out, I guess. Should it be like a permanent position or?
Well, I don't know. It's a dream list, but I always felt that teachers that do co-curricular, extracurricular activities should be paid for it. We pay, coaches for sports. Why not people that do spelling bees or math leagues and robotics or other programs like that? I know there are some teachers who get extra pay, like for band, and they deserve it because they do spend a lot of extra time. But you cannot imagine the number of hours a typical robotics teacher will put in after school weekends. I mean, early on, teachers would complain to me, and their criticism of the program was they said the kids don't want to go home. Well, isn't that a good thing? When you have to turn off the lights and kick them out of your room. So there is an interest there. And I guess my curiosity right now is why esports got recognized as an official sport, but robotics has not. We've tried to get robotics as a designated sport because it is a sport. And I think there are 3 states that have designated robotics as an official sport.
Really?
Yeah. But, unlike esports that has a lot of money, the scholastic robotics kind of just surviving on its own. So I think that's a challenge. I think what's missing right now in our state, we used to have a lot of facilitated programs through special funding. Like I helped run a program called Space Conference for 14 years. It was $75,000 by legislative allotment. And we ran up to 50 schools. We would do a facilitated program on landing on the moon, landing on Mars, and we'd have workshops, and the kids would come together at the end to showcase what they've done. Unfortunately, when they went to this weighted student formula, all those funds got dispersed, divided up among schools. And so with $200, you're not going to do much at a school for something like that.
Do you feel that our DOE, a lot of programs are moving in that direction or have moved in that direction?
We've lost a lot of facilitated programs. Facilitated meaning from somebody organizing a statewide program. Because I feel context-based programs are important where teachers can weave in the math, the reading, science, technology under one umbrella with an outcome, because I call it a mission. In other words, there's an end result. Like in robotics, if you didn't have a tournament, what fun would the kids have? It's like practicing volleyball but never have a game against another team. We've had this discussion about competition. How valuable is it? Is it harmful? Because sometimes parents especially go overboard and want to win so badly that, unfortunately, it takes away from the kids' ability and opportunity. So, but I think you need that bar to go for. I think that's my opinion. Yeah.
Going off of opportunities, like I know you've had many opportunities to move to travel around the U.S., but what all your stories about actually traveling to Japan, not only for personal reasons but also professionally. I have this stereotypical view that everything's all scienced out, especially in the high school version where they have robots inside the classrooms, but they're not the case, right? So
not at all.
It's a college level thing, or club, in fact, still.
Yeah.
And then if you can go into that.
Yeah, I think my understanding until I saw it myself was similar to what you described, that they were high-tech and so forth. But Japan's nationwide, they're very systematic in the way they approach education. So everybody is on the same page, on the same day kind of thing. And so getting something new like robotics into their system is very difficult. So it needs to start as they've been doing as a club program, like us. After-school club program. And that's VEX, for example, in Japan is where we were 10 years ago. They're starting out now. And they're primarily using it initially as a way to teach English or to practice English. And because the kids have to communicate in English if they go to World Championship. And so we've actually met with them. We helped start VEX in Japan, actually. A tournament there by a chance meeting with American School in Japan teacher. And, that guy moved during COVID to Florida. So it kind of squandered for a while. And then it's restarted now under a couple really dynamic leaders over there that are growing the program. My first venture into Japan was being invited to speak at a cultural congress in Chiba, Japan University. And I spoke to 350 businessmen about America's space program. And after that, through Botball, we invited a professor from Kagawa University to come to see this and he introduced us to micro-robots, where the robots are very tiny, autonomous, or wire control.
That's like the maze bots, right?
Right, exactly. So we took teams to their micro-robot tournament at Nagoya University. And while there, I met staff.
High school teams.
High school teams. I met staff members from a school in Kyoto, Japan, that invited us eventually to their Super Science Fair. And that thing has been going on for 20 years now, where students and teachers from Hawaii go to a one-week science symposium. 20 countries attend this. Cool thing is everything's done in English, and it's all free. Everything's paid on the ground. So you just pay your airfare and go there. So we've had that program 20 years. Now, that kind of thing has led to other opportunities because it taught me that global education is so important. Our kids their competition is not local, it's global, right?
Yes.
And while doing this, I found out, for example, that the Japanese kids weren't learning coding at all. They had almost no engineering programs in their schools. In the natural sciences, they're amazing. Biology, chemistry, physics, geology, those kinds of things, top of the world. But coding, foreign to them. Interesting, 2 years ago, because of COVID, I was doing virtual programs with high schools, super science high schools in Japan. They have this special designation where they designate a school as super science. So I got to meet several virtually, and I did presentations to them, and they did presentations to us on their projects, and just amazing research projects that they were doing. And that's a consequence. That's when I learned, what little engineering they have, what little coding they have. Now, it's changing now, but at the time. And interestingly, we got a student who we met only virtually, asked us to write a letter of recommendation for him to go to University of Tokyo to major in computer engineering. Like, how did that happen, And just this morning, I found out another student we had met virtually just got into Tokyo University to become he wants to go into materials engineering. So you never know how you touch people, just even virtually, you can touch them in some significant way. I never would have imagined that we could play a part in a Japanese student getting into Tokyo University.
Also, you've built relationships with these super science centers to a point where also, not only going for the week, but high schools, you form sister school.
I'm not involved in that formal type program, but a Big Island businessman has generously gifted us with some money. And his goal was to help us build relationships with schools in Japan. So far, I've paired 5 schools in Hawaii and 5 schools in Japan. And they're all different. The pairings are all different. What our goal is not just to go visit each other, which is the typical sister school relationship. You visit them, they visit you, you correspond. And so our goal is that they do common joint research of some kind or joint projects of some kind. So each one is evolving a little differently. Waikia and Hilo Intermediate Schools right now are working with a school in Tokyo, Japan. And the foundation is robotics because that school in Japan is just starting a program. It's an all-girls school there in Tokyo.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a team from YK and a team from Hilo Intermediate are going to Tokyo in March during spring break. And they're going to go visit the school. They're going to compete with them at this Japan Cup tournament that we helped start in 2019. And so it's starting our relationship. And I've sat in on a couple of the Zooms they've been doing. It's just fascinating to hear the conversation between the students about talking about cultural differences. But essentially, they're going to try and drive it toward finding something that they both have an issue that they can research together.
Having worked with so many, with Japan and seeing people travel to US and whatnot, you talk about a wish list. So I would love to hear that. Like, what do you think is lacking and or how do we move forward so that we can have our, not only, some of these robotics teams are handpicked individuals. And obviously not everybody wants to go into robotics and or the STEM field.
Sure.
What's your wish list, I guess, moving forward for our keiki, our schools, and whatnot?
The reason why scholastic robotics took off 20-something years ago was the fact that they took advantage of 2 things society values. And what are those? Sports and entertainment. So robotics has evolved into a game-like structure, right? You have competition, and you always have a loud MC with loud music playing. That's the entertainment part. So they took advantage of that. What's unfortunate to me in a way is that we have not invested in the same way we do in sports and entertainment into STEM fields, or not just STEM fields, in the fine arts and so forth. We need, to me, to balance this a little bit. Now, why can we spend $350 million to build a sports stadium, but we cannot put up a STEM center, that the community can use? If I had a dream list, I was asked one time, if you were governor, what would you do? And I basically said, first of all, I'd have a longer school day, but not teachers teaching longer. I'd have stagger work shifts, so you have some teachers coming early, some teachers staying late, some teachers staying on the weekend, Because a school to me is like an airplane not flying, right? You're not making money unless you're using the building all the time. And during summer, you can have programs. I also feel that you need innovation centers set up in the community so that people have a common place where they can go that have all the machine tools and an expert that can show you how to do it. CNC machines or laser cutters and so forth, even bandsaws. So if I have an idea, I can go there and showcase or at least develop a prototype of what I have in mind. So I think we always talk about diversification of our economy, but we don't move forward too much about it. To me, small business has to be the way. We're not going to get the big companies to come here, but why not develop the capability of having small, innovative businesses develop here in Hawaii? So I would like to see an innovation center. I mean, I recently saw one that they developed for seniors in Japan, where seniors can go there and innovate on products that would help seniors. And I have two passions. I've had two passions. One is senior care, and the other is food security. To me, technology can play a big part in both of those because we have an aging society. More of our population going to be 65 and older soon. And so we have serious issues that we have to deal with. And of course, we always talk about food security, like we only grow a small percentage of the food we consume. So why can't we grow more of our own food? As a small example, I invested in a vertical tower on my condo lanai. That one tower provides all the fresh greens my wife and I eat every week. So just one tower, if you can imagine multiplying that into hundreds of towers in a climate control warehouse, imagine how much food we could produce for our community. So I believe strongly in technology as a way. I don't think a lot of kids want to go shovel dirt, but if you tell them you can sit in a room and control a robot doing that.
If for those of you who are interested in the kind of work that Art was doing, or you still are actually linked to them with the Space Grant Consortium.
Well, I'm retired from Space Grant now.
Okay.
But I'm still considered emeritus with them, so I guess I still do some work. But on our own, we like to keep busy. And as long as we don't embarrass ourselves in front of an audience, we'd like to continue to contribute. So we still volunteer. We're doing a family night tonight at Kapiolani School, which is the school I graduated from. So I'm excited about that. And we're starting a new program. It's in developmental stage now. Is all of our scholastic robotics programs have been student-centered. We tell the adults, no, not for you. This is for students only. You stay out of the way. The program we're envisioning now is for seniors. We're telling the students, you stay out of the way of the seniors. Let the seniors have fun now. So we have...
Maybe there might be a battle between the two in
so
cross competition in the future.
We want the students to be the mentors of the elders. And so we're trying to conceptualize a program where we can use VEX IQ and have the seniors or elders come together in a kind of friendly tournament.
Yeah.
And instead of giving trophies, we'll give bags of rice and stuff like that. So I think working in care homes and senior centers, we could have fun with that. So.
Awesome. If you could say what that website was, that if they wanted to learn about the Space Grant, and
they just search online Hawaii Space Grant Consortium, and you'll come up with their website. They have a very comprehensive K-12 program. Now it's primarily focused on robotics, so they have a robotics specialist there that works. So if a school or community group wants to start robotics, that's a good way to start, is to contact them and see what resources and services they could offer.
Awesome. Once again, Art, thank you for being on our show. I do appreciate it. And then you guys stay tuned for the next Techsum podcast. Mahalo.
The preceding program was a production of Naleo TV.